What is up, guys? It's that GTA fan 720 with a super quick video. Now, a lot of you guys have seen my interview with Zach Cernock. That's not finished. That was only part one. Part two will be going up tomorrow. I'm basically going to be splitting it out pretty much every other day. So, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, probably even Saturday. Who knows? I still got a lot of parts. It was a long interview. But here's the thing. I was on a live stream with TailosiveTech, which I love. Yeah, I love his work and everything. He does a lot of very good content. He's known as the Apple Sheep, which I don't have a problem with. A lot of people think I hate Apple. I really don't. I just don't. Their products just don't appeal to me as a consumer. I am a consumer, and their products personally don't appeal to me. And Samsung's products, in the case with phones, seems to appeal to me more. And that's for one sole reason, and that's this: the S Pen. Now, in the live stream that I was in, I basically asked him, "Hey, Drew, which is his name, what are your thoughts on Apple making a true competitor to the Galaxy Note, essentially one with an Apple Pencil built in?" And he basically said, "Well, that's a stupid idea. Why does nobody uses the stylus?" He's like, "I have so many friends. They all have notes. Nobody uses the stylus. Nobody does. It's a useless feature." And he says everybody can type faster than they can dictate, which is kind of, I can't, but I guess because he said it over and over again, that means that I can type faster than I can handwrite because he said it, I guess. And he also mentioned a couple different things. Sorry, I have to switch hands. It's like this is a pain to record like this. But actually, maybe I can set this down right here. One up, jerry rig it. So, anyways, he basically said, like, nobody uses a stylus. And I can understand that. I know many people who buy notes and they do not use the S Pen. However, I am someone who does. I use it every single day. Literally every single day. There is not a day that goes by where I do not eject the S Pen and use it. And yes, unfortunately, that does mean that I've had to initially buy a replacement pen. And that is one thing I don't like, because if your pen breaks more than once, it's not covered under your warranty, even though it's an integral part of the device. That is stupid, and I personally think that's not good on Samsung's part. However, that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be there in the first place. The S Pen is an integral tool, and before someone starts commenting saying, "The notes suck, just buy the S series, buy an iPhone, whatever," it's just the facts. Something is not a gimmick in a device if you use it. If it's something that you would never use, that's when it becomes a gimmick. For some people who just use the Note as a big phone, the S Pen is a gimmick because they don't use it. For those who have the S8 and they don't use the iris scanner, that's a gimmick. If they do use the iris scanner, it's not a gimmick. It's an integral part of the device, and it's part of what they purchased. There is a reason why I bought this Note 5 for more money than the S7 Edge, despite the fact that at that point the Note 7 had already come and gone. I still paid the price on the Note 5 because I wanted to get a brand new Note 5 because it's a Note. That's how much I use this. I sacrificed the water resistance, the edge screen, all of that fancy stuff because of the S Pen, because I use it all the time. And some people might be thinking, well, what do you use that you cannot do on any other phone? And I said, because these are the features I use. You can use the GIF creator. It sounds like a useless feature. And yes, the S8 now has that feature. However, it doesn't work as seamlessly with your fingers. And I know it sounds stupid, but the pen is more precise. Nobody's debating that. A stylus is more precise. And some people make the argument that where you have those cheap $1 styluses that are supposed to work with any touchscreen device that are big, fat, they're essentially the same size as your finger, which I do agree. If you're going to use one of those big styluses that are the same size as your finger, you're defeating the point. The whole point of this is that it's essentially the size of a real pen, so you get the true precision of it. In fact, let me take mine out for demonstration purposes. So this thing, it has a fine tip on it, so you know for a fact that it's going to be more precise when you're writing on the screen. And yes, for the screen off memo, where you take the pen out, you write something down, pop it back in, it saves it. that for some people may go faster if they could just start typing. But can you realize that if you had this phone in your pocket and you wanted to have it set where you pull it out of your pocket and you just start typing on nothing and it magically writes something down, which is not how it works at all, you would be constantly, writing stuff down. You'd constantly be typing in your pocket. You would have like just this big wall of text, like blah, 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 all over, because you would be typing in your pocket. How are they going to implement a feature where you don't have that? Yet at the same time, you still have the screen off memo features that have been with us since 2015. If you ask these questions to the people who actually use it, now it's easy to say that nobody uses these if you don't know anybody who uses them. And just because you don't know people personally who use it doesn't mean that nobody does. For the past 3 generations, there have been phablet-style Galaxies with big screens, but without the pens. So the people who want a big screen phone no longer have to buy a Note. If they don't want the stylus, they don't need it. In 2015, you didn't have to buy the Note 5. If you didn't want the stylus, you bought the S6 Edge Plus. In 2016, you don't want the stylus, you don't want your phone to explode in your pocket, you bought the S7 Edge. Now, when the Note 8 is around the corner, if you don't care about the stylus, buy an S8 Plus. And with all these generations, the screen difference in size between the Note series has been marginal at best. In the case of the S6 Edge Plus, it was the exact same size, and in the case of the S8 Plus, it's 1 inch tinier than the Note, assuming that the Note will have the 6.3-inch display like we have previously established throughout the leaks. That's a very small margin. Most consumers do not care about that margin. They're not going to say, oh, this one's a tiny bit bigger, and it's $200 more expensive, but it has a pen that I'm never going to use. Nobody's going to say that. The people who actually use this are the people that are still buying the Notes. My dad. And I know. Because you're saying that because nobody that you know uses the pen, then nobody does. Well, I know not millions, but I know plenty of people who have Notes and they use the pens. Five people I know have the Note 5. Every single one of them uses the pen on a regular basis. 3 of them daily. I know several people who own a Note 4 and a Note 3. Again, daily. Very, very often they use the S Pen. Even in some cases, if it isn't every day, it's at least every week. It's at least enough to justify the marginal difference in price for owning this stylus. And yes, especially since the Note 5, the stylus build quality itself has gone down the drain, which does require that sometimes you have to buy a replacement. But if you don't have a replacement, then it just becomes any other phone with a big hole in it. So I don't see what the big deal is. And I've literally been using this phone for 6 months, using the S Pen every single day for 6 months. And my pen broke. My pen broke back in June. Late June, early July, my pen broke. That's like several months of heavy use. At the time, I was like, oh, it broke, that sucks. But looking back on it, that's several months of heavy use for this plastic hollow pen. And yes, it could be metal, which would make it a higher build quality, but at the same time, that also means that when it inevitably does break, because the way that my last one broke is somebody stepped on it. If it was metal, it wouldn't have cracked, but it would have bent. Either way, it would have been broken. Except now, instead of it costing $20 to replace, it would cost 40, 60, 70, who knows? Microsoft's the Surface Pen, or whatever they call it, the stylus for the Surface, the Apple Pencil for the iPad Pro, those are 60, 70 bucks. I mean, isn't the iPad Pro isn't the Apple Pencil like $100 now? Or at least it was when it came out. I'm not sure if it still is. By the way, that's around 60 bucks as opposed to 20. And they were also bringing up the argument, wait a minute, but if you draw on your phone, which I do draw things on my phone, but they were saying, oh, it's too small of a display. You think it's too small of a display, so you're saying, well, here's the thing. You do realize that people who buy these Notes, at least in my opinion, are never going to buy a tablet. I'm never going to buy a tablet. At least not an Android tablet or an iPad. If I'm going to buy a tablet, it's going to be a Surface because it runs full Windows and I can have all the desktop apps. Otherwise, I don't care. Because at that point, it's literally just my phone, but slightly bigger, and I can't call anyone. What's the point of that? You have a bigger canvas, but if you're not taking full advantage of that canvas anyway, what's the point? There is none. I have no problem with using the screen real estate. Is it small at times? Yes, obviously. It's only 5.7 inches as opposed to, 12.5 on the iPad Pro? Obviously, it's a smaller screen. But an iPad doesn't go everywhere with you, at least not with me. Like, I don't take my laptop or my iPad everywhere I go. But if I want to draw something down really quick, because if I get an idea in my head, a creative idea, be it song lyrics, be it, ideas for drawings, for different, art and stuff, then I want to write it down immediately. I want to get it out of my head and expressed onto a canvas as soon as possible. Do you really think that if I get an idea in my head, I'm just going to try to remember it until I can get home and then draw it out on my iPad? Assuming I even have one. Or draw it out, try to write it out on my laptop, type it on my laptop. Your phone's always with you. This is portability. And I don't have any problems carrying my Note around. It's not that big of a phone. I carried the Note 3 for many years. I had no problems with it. I carried the Note 2. No problems with it. I've carried other phablet class devices. 5.1, 5.2, 5.7. Any screen size you can think of, I probably carried a phone that size around. And the truth is, I would never look back. And I know I'm looking over here, it's because I'm seeing people walk outside. But I know it's a long rant. I know it's not edited, it's not fancy and all that. And I know I'm clicking the pen, which, yes, I will admit, I do like this. It is kind of addicting. But hey, I don't have to carry a fidget spinner around. So that's a benefit too. So, what have we learned today? Just because that someone who isn't technologically savvy buys a device and doesn't use all of its features doesn't mean that there's not a market for that device, especially in the case of the Notes. There were some people saying in the wake of the Note 7 they should cancel the Notes entirely, which would be bad. I can't even describe how bad it would be for their business model, because there were billions of people who have bought Notes since the first iteration because it was a power user's phone. Because it was a phone that had the stylus, so it had those capabilities. And this isn't a cheap stylus. People forget this. This has the same technology that your iPad Pro has. This has the same technology that your Microsoft Surface has. That's why it works so well. Is it perfect? Obviously not. But does it affect me negatively whenever I'm drawing? I have no problems. I had no problems on my Note 3. Yes, this is slightly better than the Note 3, but it's still just fine. It's not 100% lag free, but I've never had a moment where I was like, oh God, I wish my pen would just more faster. Well, yeah, grammar. I just wish my pen would just, because I'm pixel peeping. I was like, I wish it was just a little bit closer. It's like, I don't care. As long as the end result in whatever it is I'm doing has been successfully completed, I'm happy. And that's why I paid a premium for this phone. And I don't understand why some people say, the stylus is useless. And when the truth is that I would love to try out an iPhone. Because I do like a lot of stuff that Apple offers. This is probably going to be shocking to a lot of viewers. But you know why I don't? Because they don't offer this. If the next generation iPhone introduces a version of the phone that actually has a built-in Apple Pencil, very similar to the S Pen, and has similar features, then it will truly be a competitor. The iPhone 7 Plus was not a competitor to the Galaxy Note 7. It was a competitor to the S7 Edge on every level. Didn't have a stylus, and it had the exact same screen size. The iPhone 6s Plus was not a competitor to the Galaxy Note 5. it was a competitor to the S6 Edge Plus. Because there is no competition for this. LG did have a phone back in 2014 called the LG Stylo V2 or something along the lines of that. And I know someone who has one, and I've used it, and it is crap. I'm not just saying that because hating on LG. Their implementation of that stylus, the stylus is too thin, which some people argue this is too thin. I don't have a problem with this. Obviously, it's going to be a thin pen. It's not going to be like a marker, but it can fit inside the phone. That's the advantage. It's always with you. It works. There's nothing wrong with it. Whereas the LG stylus is a worthless pile of trash. And I know because I've used it. It doesn't allow you to navigate with the pen. It has these preset features that you can only use with that, at least from what I used of it. And you could tell that it was a carbon copy of the Note. It was something where they were purposefully trying to take away some of that market, which I would be all for, but they didn't implement it right. They didn't. So unfortunately, Samsung has us by a monopoly right now. And until a company comes out and is willing to make a true, this generation competitor to the Galaxy Note, unfortunately, this is still going to be the best line of phones because this is the reason why this is the best phone, in my opinion, because of the S Pen. If I didn't care about think about it, the Note 3 is one thing because that was a hand-me-down. But if I didn't care about the stylus, do you really think if I didn't care about the stylus, I would have bought the Note 5 over the S7 Edge? No. Nobody cares about the screen being slightly bigger. I would have gotten a newer device with more storage options, more long-term software support, a better build quality. You have a better camera in some instances, and it was cheaper than the Note 5, and it was a newer device. Yet I still got this, and you're telling me that this is useless, that nobody uses this, or at least not a significant chunk of consumers enough to justify there being a competitor to this. Apple, you are not watching this video, but if someone works at Apple and you want my money, make a true Note competitor with this. With a built-in slimline Apple Pencil. Built in. Not just it works with it. Because keep in mind, this is not a capacitive stylus. This uses real Wacom technology, which I know sounds like, some dainty piece of fluff compared to what, to average consumers, because they're not going to know. But there is actual technology built into the display designed to specifically use this pen. That's why it works so well. That's why those capacitive stylus that you get, when people say, oh, just buy one of those big fat marker styluses that are like $30. Buy it and use it on your iPhone. It works terribly. It works terribly. I even tried one of those because my aunt had one of those, and I did a test on this screen. It's trash compared to this. It's garbage. And it's not even a matter of being fanboyism. That's the reason it exists. That's the reason it was built, because it works functionally, even to non-tech savvy people. It works better than the built-in, just tack-on styluses that you get with every other phone. None of them are built in. None of them are integrated into the software. None of them have the experience that the S Pen has. So let this be a lesson, Samsung. I know we've seen the leaks, so obviously the Note 8's coming out. Don't discontinue this line, because this is literally the last phone that has this option. You will be alienating a giant fan base if you did kill the Note line. So anyway, guys, this is that GTA Fan 720 signing out. I use this. I paid for it, and I will use it. Anyway, guys, this is that GTA Fan 720 signing out. I hope you all have a good one, and see you guys in part 2 of my Zach Cernock Note 7 interview. Peace.